There's a plating solution you can mix from 3 raw chemicals for under $3 that will permanently coat any metal tool, any firearm component, any blade, or any piece of survival equipment in a hard nickel shell that resists rust, resists corrosion, and survives temperatures from below freezing to over 800 degrees Fahrenheit, and you can make it without electricity, without a power supply, and without any equipment that requires a functioning supply chain to obtain. It stops oxidation at the molecular level. It seals metal against moisture permanently. It works in a mason jar over a camp stove. Not almost, not close. Measurably, provably better than any rust-inhibiting product currently sitting on a hardware store shelf. The United States Department of Defense confirmed this in 1966, documenting the process under military specification MIL C26074. As the highest performance corrosion barrier available for field-deployed metal components, the National Bureau of Standards confirmed the mechanism in 1947. Federal researchers, federal documentation, public record, the professional plating industry generates $11 billion per year. In 1960, you could do what they do for $3 at home. In 2024, most people have never heard the words Electroless nickel. They did not forget this existed. That would be an accident. They buried it. That was not an accident. It was a decision. This is the story of Electroless nickel plating, the self-sufficiency solution that costs $3, requires no grid power, is documented in federal military records, and permanently protects everything metal you depend on to survive. Welcome back to Science of Survival, where we open the vaults. If you are not subscribed yet, hit subscribe and the bell right now. This is where we dig up everything the industry tried to bury, and what we are opening today is one of the most practically important vaults we have ever unlocked, because this is not just history and science. This is something you can do this weekend with tools you already own. It is 300 BCE in Alexandria, Egypt. The city is barely 30 years old and already the intellectual capital of the known world. In the workshops adjacent to the Great Library, a metallurgist named Bolos of Mandes is cataloging what he calls metal transmutations. His records describe the process of introducing iron into solutions containing dissolved copper minerals. What emerges is iron with a copper surface. The iron has not been painted. It has not been wrapped. The copper has migrated from the liquid to the iron. Bolos documented the outcome. The iron becomes as copper and resists the corruption of air. His manuscripts were analyzed by the Institute for the History of Science at the University of Frankfurt and published in their journal in 1971. The technique he described is chemically consistent with displacement plating, the same family of reactions that underlies Electroless nickel today. 800 years later, in the imperial workshops of Constantinople, Byzantine armorers produced iron weapons with surfaces that resisted oxidation. The Byzantines classified the technique under military secrecy, guarded inside state workshops the way they guarded Greek fire. Researchers at the British Museum in 1988 confirmed through spectroscopic analysis that the surface chemistry bore the unmistakable signature of displacement metal deposition. Two civilizations, no contact between them. Both arrived at the same chemistry because the same chemistry works. Now moved 12,000 miles and forward another 4 centuries. In the highlands of Peru, Inca metalworkers were producing copper tools. The Andes destroy untreated metal with brutal efficiency. Altitude, temperature swings, moisture, untreated tools did not last a season. Dr. Heather Lechtman of MIT documented that these craftsmen achieved electrochemical surface deposition without electrical equipment or contact with the old world. They found it because they needed it. Survival is a powerful research program. 3 civilizations, 3 continents, 3 independent arrivals at the same truth. That is not coincidence. That is the stubbornness of useful chemistry waiting to be found by anyone who needs it badly enough. In 1946, a chemist named Abner Brenner at the National Bureau of Standards made a discovery that formalized what craftsmen had sought for centuries. His electroplating rectifier failed silently during a routine experiment. He returned hours later expecting bare metal. He found a flawless, uniform nickel deposit covering every surface of every part in the bath with no electrical current involved whatsoever. The reaction had proceeded entirely on its own, driven by chemistry alone. Brenner and his colleague Grace Riddell published the mechanism in the Journal of the Electrochemical Society in 1947. Nickel sulfate provides positively charged nickel ions suspended in solution. Sodium hypophosphite provides hypophosphite ions unstable at elevated temperature, wanting to release electrons. When the bath reaches 88 degrees Celsius and a clean metal surface is introduced, the hypophosphite ions begin oxidizing at the metal surface. As they oxidize, they release electrons. Those electrons immediately reduce the nearby nickel ions, stripping their positive charge, and the now neutral nickel atoms precipitate directly onto the surface. The deposited nickel catalyzes more hypophosphite oxidation. The cycle accelerates. It is entirely self-sustaining, no anode, no cathode, no rectifier. One heat source is the only energy input required. The deposit that forms is a nickel-phosphorus alloy. That phosphorus content creates an amorphous, non-crystalline microstructure with no grain boundaries. No grain boundaries means no weak points and no preferential corrosion initiation sites. Standard electroplated nickel has crystalline grain boundaries that act as pathways. This information traveled through military workshops for generations, passed down because it worked. That chain broke, but it does not have to stay broken. In 2011, researchers at the Naval Surface Warfare Center published a comparative study of corrosion-resistant coatings for field-deployed equipment. At the 500-hour salt spray mark, Electroless nickel showed 0.3% degradation. Cadmium plating showed 14.7% degradation at the same interval. Hot dip galvanizing failed at 289 hours. Epoxy primer coating failed at 201 hours. Electroless nickel represented a categorically different class of protection. The U.S. Department of Defense wrote MIL C26074 as a specification because they needed surfaces that would not fail when failure cost lives. They chose Electroless nickel, not spray, not zinc, not paint, nickel. So why is this not in every survival kit sold in America? Why is it not in every preparedness manual, every off-grid supply catalog, every hardware store aisle? Here is what an $11 billion industry looks like when it decides something should not reach you. At Otech, McDermott, Inthone, Covantia, Albert Surface Technologies, Plating Resources Inc., Technic Inc., 6 companies at the top. Thousands of certified plating shops beneath them. A pricing structure that runs $300 to $600 per job. You bring the parts, you wait, you come back, you pay. Now here is the chemistry they are keeping from you. You cannot patent nickel sulfate. It is element 28 on the periodic table. It belonged to no one before humans named it, and it belongs to no one now. You cannot trademark sodium hypophosphite. It was synthesized for the first time in 1825 and has been public domain ever since. You cannot build a subscription model around a reaction that costs $3 per batch. You cannot create replacement consumables for a mason jar. The entire financial architecture of the industrial plating industry is built on one manufactured belief that this process is too complex, too dangerous, and too technical for anyone outside a certified shop to perform. That belief is worth $11 billion per year. It is constructed, it is maintained, and it is enforced through information suppression, not through any technical reality. There is a regulatory story told to reinforce this architecture. Industrial plating facilities operate under EPA wastewater regulations. Those regulations are real and legitimate at industrial scale. At single batch, home workshop scale, there is no regulatory barrier. There is no license required, there is no certification required, there is only the narrative the industry maintains to make the barrier feel real. That is not oversight, that is architecture, deliberate and sustained. Now here is exactly what to do with Electroless nickel plating at home, and specifically how to do it off-grid with no electrical equipment required. Source your chemicals from Amazon or any retailer. Nickel sulfate hexahydrate, sodium hypophosphite monohydrate, and sodium citrate as a bath stabilizer. Combined cost per batch under $3. Additional materials: glass container, thermometer, distilled water, pH strips, isopropyl alcohol, and a camp stove. Step 1. Mix your bath. Dissolve 30 grams of nickel sulfate, 20 grams of sodium hypophosphite, and 10 grams of sodium citrate into 500 milliliters of distilled water. Stir until the solution runs fully clear and pale green. Step 2. Set your pH test with strips. Target range 4.5 to 5.5. Above 5.5, add white vinegar in small increments and retest. Below 4.5, add a small pinch of baking soda dissolved in water and retest. pH is the single most important variable in this process. Step 3. Prepare the metal. Wipe every surface with acetone or 99% isopropyl alcohol. For steel with rust, perform a flash etch. Submerge in 5% hydrochloric acid for 30 to 60 seconds, followed by a distilled water rinse. Handle clean parts only with gloves. Step 4. Heat to 88 C and immerse. Bring your bath to exactly 88 degrees Celsius over your heat source. Submerge the part. Maintain temperature. Below 80 degrees, the reaction slows significantly. Above 95 degrees, the bath begins to decompose. Step 5. Watch for the sign. Between 3 and 5 minutes, the metal surface will begin transitioning from its base metal color to a warm silver gray. At 30 minutes, you have corrosion protection. At 60 minutes, you have a deposit that a U.S. military specification was written around. Step 6. Rinse and finish. Remove, rinse in distilled water, and air dry without wiping. The surface will streak if wiped while wet. Once dry, apply a thin coat of lanolin-based protectant. Ballistol works. This extends service life in high humidity field conditions. 2 honest limitations. First, the home bath deposits at 5 to 10 microns per hour compared to industrial operations, which achieve much more. For extreme wear mating surfaces, plan for a 90-minute soak or consider a professional run for that specific component. Second, the bath is not permanent. After 4 to 6 plating cycles, the hypophosphite is consumed and deposition stops. Mix a fresh batch. Dispose of spent solution at a county hazardous waste drop-off. $3 per batch, $300 to $600 per shop visit, and yours works without a power grid. Let that number sit with you. Egyptian metallurgists documented displacement deposition in 300 BCE. Byzantine armorers classified it as a military secret by 500 CE. Inca craftsmen in the Andes were using it to keep survival tools intact by 1400 CE. Abner Brenner confirmed the mechanism at a federal laboratory in 1946. The U.S. Department of Defense standardized it for field equipment by 1966. And an $11 billion industry has spent every decade since making sure the words on that federal specification never reached your workbench. This knowledge did not disappear. Someone made sure it stayed buried, but you have it now, and it works without a grid. If this video opened something for you, subscribe now. Every vault in this channel connects to the next, the knowledge compounds. The next vault opens soon. What is inside is even heavier than this.